Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order, 1:54 p.m. Sound a little bit like a broken record, but I apologize to everybody in person and online. We're running a little bit behind schedule, hence the delay from 1:30 start. As required by the CSPA, the board met earlier to discuss matters of an in-camera nature pursuant to section 44(1)(b) and section 44(2) of the Community Safety and Policing Act, matters that deal of a legal, personnel, property matters as enumerated in the legislation. We've now moved into the open session of the meeting, and just to give everybody a little bit of a roadmap for the meeting itself, you'll see in the agenda, we have the Crime Stopper statistic report. We have a professional standards report that'll be coming, vehicle pursuits report. As this is the first meeting of the year, as required of us statutorily in this under the CSPA, we have our chair and vice chair elections scheduled for the end of the agenda there. So the chair and vice chair for 2025 year, and we'll go from there. So I will say right at the top with regards to a board in camera, we board met, and I'll read the motion that the board passed. That the London Police Service Board, having considered the complaints received and having acknowledged the OCPC and its decision that an investigation was not warranted as contained in its letter of July 5, 2024, it is the determination of the board that member Stevenson did not breach the code of conduct, and as such, there is no further action required. And that's something that the board met to discuss and reporting out as per our requirements there. So with that, I will look to the board for any disclosures of interest. If there's any conflicts of interest that need to be declared, please do so now. Seeing none, is there any new business that the board wants to add to the agenda for today's meeting? Seeing none. In your package, you have the minutes from our last board meeting in December. Are there any additions, deletions, substitutions, revisions required to the minutes? And if so, please advise now.
Move acceptance.
Thank you. The minutes are moved by member Goss. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by member Lehman. Anyone opposed to adopting the minutes from our last board meeting? Seeing none, that is approved. Okay. Looking over to member Morgan to speak to agenda item number 2, which is City of London submission to the Ministry of Finance report number 2501 PB01. Very well written report, member Morgan, if I may say, and I'm going to look to you to speak to the board about that.
Sure, I'll be relatively brief because I think I covered most of the content in the memo. As you know, the board was invited, like other boards, to make a submission to the Ontario government as part of its pre-budget consultations. Obviously, the City of London, and I assume every municipality, is making their own pre-budget submissions. A couple of areas that the city has been advocating on and will be part of larger advocacy positions, particularly the Ontario Big City Mayors, are items for consideration that I'm asking if this board would consider supporting, because they intersect with the work of this board. And I think your voice, separate from voice of just the cities or municipalities advocating, would be an important additional piece of consultation for the province to hear. So there's really two pieces to our wider advocacy that relate to the Police Services Board. One is a position that we feel that, given the importance of the Joint Fire and Police Training Center as a potential regional facility to be able to support not just fire and police operations within the City of London, but also fire departments, and it may not be just fire departments, but places like airports, with the fire tower and all the components related to training that can happen at this campus, as well as the possibility of the police components of the campus being used for regional training. It's our position that we feel that this is a great project for the province to invest in and be a capital partner in. Should the province choose to make that investment, they would be a full partner and would be potentially a regional facility. Would take some pressure off of the municipal budget and the budget that's been allocated to the fire training center, and I think align with align with provincial priorities to invest in emergency services across the province, which they have been doing in their budgets recently. As you know, they made some significant investments in even policing services and emergency services in the previous budget. I would expect them to not shy away from that this time. So important for us to flag really critical regional facilities for them to considering partnering. And the other piece is on the general costs of policing, which we know are escalating across all municipalities in the province because there's a great need for investments in public safety. Recently, the province announced that they would support small and rural municipalities that utilize OPP services to defray the increasing costs of the agreement and the investments that they've been making. It's the position of myself and other mayors in the province that just because we have a single tier municipality with its own independent police force doesn't mean we shouldn't also receive support from the province for the rising costs of policing those investments. So it's the intention to seek essentially what is an equity position with the small and rural municipalities in respect to OPP and policing costs for those municipalities that have police services of their own. So that won't be just an advocacy position of the City of London. It will be an advocacy position that is likely approved by the Ontario Big City Mayors and probably even a wider set of municipalities than that who have their own police services. And I think this is a good position to take because if you want to know if the province is willing to invest in this space, well, they already have. Like they've already been very clear about the reasons why. They've already been clear about the rationale, and they've already made the investment. So it's not a big jump to or a stretch of position to make to say, you know, standalone municipal police services should receive support as well. Again, would assist us with the paying for the costs of the necessary public safety investments that we made here in the city, investments that we know are working and starting to work and need to continue to occur. And investments that are being made now, if you look across the province, by other police services necessarily suffering. So my ask of the board is to support these positions and submit them as an independent board to the Ministry of Finance as well. Certainly the city will do so along with other advocacy positions.
Thank you, Member Morgan. Members, any questions for Member Morgan with regards to his report? I believe Member Goss, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, not so much a question or a comment or a statement, exceptionally well written. I've reviewed a lot of pre-budget statements over the last decade and submissions, I should say, excuse me. And I think this is bang on. I think it's asking to help take some of the pressures that London taxpayers feeling. And this board has been committed to that every step of the way about making sure that we provide effective public safety for an ever-growing city, but also looking wherever we can to try to find savings and to try to find other avenues to fund priorities. So I think that what has been outlined here by the mayor is extremely thorough, articulate, and well positioned. Should be the will of the board. And when the time comes, I'm happy to move that we submit a cover letter with this memo indicating the support of the London Police Service Board into the pre-budget submission.
Thank you, Member Goss. Any further questions, comments? Member Lehman?
Yes, I'd like to thank the mayor for bringing this forward. On a couple of points I want to make here. I think this really highlights the cost of safety. As a board, we recognize that, and then as a council, we recognize that with the budget, which had a big impact from the cost of safety. That the budget presented by this board when it went to council. When I first saw the public announcements of the sharing of that cost with the smaller centers, the first thing I went to in my head was, well, what about London taxpayers? So I think this is a very timely exercise by big city mayors and by yourself, Mayor, to bring that forward to the province. The other thing I want to address is the training center. And I think that was somehow lost a bit in the budget conversations. It's not a training center just for police. It is a training center for police and fire. But there's also another leg to that stool. It was always intended by this board to be a regional center, and was the intention of this board to seek, I think, even when we discuss this, funding from the provincial government to recognize that. As the biggest city in southwestern Ontario, I think we have that responsibility to show leadership. Police services right now is a huge, complex profession. And in order to address the needs of the community, training is number one. And what this facility will provide is proper training, not only for London and our police services, but also for our firefighters, which increasingly their job is not just putting out fires, but also recognizing our role as a leader in southwestern Ontario. And I think it's important for the province to recognize that as well, by helping us out with the funding and aspects. So I'm fully supportive, and again, I want to thank the mayor for bringing this forward at this time.
Thank you, Member Lehman. Any other members, questions or comments with regards to Member Morgan's report? Seeing none. So I believe, did Member Goss, did you move a motion, or were you going to move a
I
motion?
was going to.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to move a motion that the board endorse the recommendations made in the City of London provincial pre-budget submission and include a supporting covering letter to be submitted into that process on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Member Goss. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Looking at Member Lehman, second the motion. On the floor, any last debate discussion with regards to the motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Anyone opposed to Member Goss's motion? Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you very much, Member Morgan. Moving on in the agenda item number 3, looking to you, Deputy Chief Bastine, for the 2024 Crime Stoppers Statistics Report. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, through the chair. Before the board for the receiving information is the year-end fourth quarter report on Crime Stoppers 2024. Very briefly, overall number of tips received in 24 has gone up, just under 15% compared to the year prior. There were pretty significant increases in other markers: arrests made, cases cleared, charges laid, property recovered, drugs seized, etc. Mindful of the fact that these are the triple-digit changes, and because of the fact that the sample size or the size of the actual numbers is relatively small, but nonetheless, those are good numbers to see. We saw a decrease in the number of firearms seized as a result of Crime Stoppers tips. However, again, with the size of our samples that we're working with, they went from 3 to 2, if I'm not mistaken, from the year prior. So, again, I think I mentioned before at previous meetings the fact that Crime Stoppers is something that we are renewing our commitment to working with them to help raise their profile, and that will continue. We recently acknowledged their presence in their work, or the board for its work in helping us solve crime. Recent firearm seizures, very, very large seizures of drugs, including fentanyl, carfentanil, prohibited firearms, restricted firearms, handguns, etc. So again, key partner in ensuring community safety. That will continue. Subject to any questions what we have, that's the report for its received.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Bastine. I see Member Goss with our first question.
Yes, so thank you through you, Chair, to the Chief. So this is night and day different back to a report that was brought, I think, about 6 to 8 months ago to the board on Crime Stopper, to the point where there were some questions about whether or not this was a service that we would still want to utilize. I know there were issues around the organization's CRA not-for-profit status to charitable number, which have been resolved. So like, this is a marked improvement. I know the chief spoke at that meeting specifically about outreach and work that was going to be done with the organization to improve output, which clearly we've seen. I'm wondering if you can maybe break down a bit more of some of the efforts that the organization has made to engage with Crime Stoppers and why we're seeing the turnaround.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, great question, Member Goss. What we're doing differently here, what we're doing to address the lack of community engagement with Crime Stoppers in the previous times was really connecting with the president of Crime Stoppers. We're really integrating how important partnership and value that they bring not only to us, but to the organization and to the community. And if you recall in our last press conference that we shared with the community with the drug and gun seizures, we invited Crime Stoppers to be present with us there. So that's some of the things that we're doing, really including Crime Stoppers in everything that we do and working together closer to make sure that the community continues to be aware of Crime Stoppers and looking at how we can support. So our membership is really leveraging that partnership and always thinking about Crime Stoppers. And this year specifically, the relationship that Deputy Bastian has built, we're going to continue to work on that and look at other avenues to raise Crime Stoppers profile together with our organization. And again, it's consistency with communication and being out there to the community so that they are aware that Crime Stoppers is independent of the police. Their tips that they receive are confidential. They are not disclosed. It is true anonymity. And we know that if we work with Crime Stoppers, we're really working with the community and it's going to help us solve crime.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Member Goss. Any further questions with regards to the Crime Stoppers report? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to receive the report. Moved by Member Goss, seconded by Member Stevenson. Anyone opposed to receiving the report? Seeing none, the motion has been received. Deputy Chief Bastien, staying with you, we have agenda item number 4, Executive Administration Professional Standards 2024 Complaints Report. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair. This is the year-end for 2024 report on complaints submitted for to the board for its information purposes. We have, I think it's in Appendix A, or I guess in the beginning on page 3 of the report, a number of metrics which are reported as result or as required by board policy. Brief summary as a cover page, you have the fact that overall complaints the past year are lower as compared to previous years. Complaints about the conduct of police officers are relatively stable compared to the prior year, 2023. And as has been noted before as well, complaints about service provided by the London Police Service are down quite significantly in 2024. We believe that this is in part due to the implementation of the Inspector of Policing or the enactment of the CSPA, which saw changes in the way service complaints are reported and investigated. However, we are also quite confident that our service complaints are down in part because of our ability to do things differently, respond more quickly to calls for service. And I think to the extent that service compliance may be an indicator of our public-facing persona, I suppose, in the individual level of officers, how we treat the public, how we interact with the public, how we support them when they call. To the extent that our members are feeling more supported in their ability to do that, we feel that has a positive impact on the numbers with respect to complaints in relation to service. I'll just make a note that the data board policy requires that we provide 2 years data. We provide for moving forward in 2025. We'll keep 2021 data there, so you have a 5-year. The board has a 5-year picture. I think it's probably more useful to see the longer term trends. And speaking of trends, really none observed. The type of complaint around conduct, in terms of police officer conduct, tends to be relatively stable, having to do generally with 2 broad categories: performance of duties and interaction with the public. the data, again, the way the data is portrayed, there's no changes. So this is a report that the board has probably noticed has changed a little bit a few times in the past year as we try to work to modernize the way we report the data. We, having received favorable feedback with the Q3 report, we'd like that change this time. But you do see that in the chart on page 8, towards a resolution of complaints, that a very large proportion, large majority of complaints that are received by OAPRD in the first 4 months of the year, and then by the law enforcement complaints agency, which it was what the agency is called now post CSPA. Very large portion of those complaints still are screened out. So in terms of all the calls our officers attend, very few results in incidents that lead to a complaint, which is later found to be later screened in. Subject to any questions of the board, is the report submitted for information purposes.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Justine. Any questions for Deputy Chief with regards to the report? Seeing no questions, I'll need a motion to receive report. Member Laban, seconded by Member Goss. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. I believe, is it Deputy Chief Bastide, are you getting this one as well? I know Deputy Chief Guilford is not here today, so you're carrying this one?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. So I'll stay with you. Uniform Division 2024 report, vehicle pursuit report.
Thank you, through the chair. On behalf of Deputy Guilford, this is the Q4 year-end 2024 report on pursuits. So as you can see on page 2, no pursuits during the quarter whatsoever. And so likewise, no injuries, no damage to vehicle, etc. I'll make just a brief observation about the report. I'm sure the board saw it as well. The 5-year comparative data, you see consistently a drop in the number of pursuits initiated, which is the top line. 2019 was as high as 10, and then over the years 7, 6, 5, and down to 1 in 2024. And then if you look towards the bottom of the report on page 2, the number of instances where our officers were found to not be in compliance with the procedure has followed. So we've gone down from 7, 6, 3, 2, and 1. Again, overall, we understand that that's relative to the number of pursuits overall. However, it's a good, in the instances where we are engaging in pursuits, the numbers, the performance of the officers is typically more compliance, and, as opposed to years past. Subject to any questions of the board, which I'll attempt to answer on behalf of Deputy Guilford. That's the report on pursuits before 2024.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Bastine. Any questions for Deputy Chief Bastine? Yep, Member Laban.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. What I also noticed that the number of charges laid has also decreased dramatically. Are we able to enforce the law through other means with those individuals that are fleeing the scene that we're not able to pursue?
So, thank you. And through the chair, we are. And this number is in relation to occurrences that involve a pursuit or a mobile occurrence. So when you see these elevated numbers going further back, what you often see in the case of a single pursuit will be multiple infractions and multiple criminal offenses. So there could be often pursuits are related to possession of stolen property, quite often the vehicle itself, sometimes property within the vehicle, sometimes there are firearms or drugs. So engaging in a pursuit, stopping a vehicle may result in 15 charges in one incident. So the fact that that number is dropping has less to do doesn't indicate that we aren't as effective at laying appropriate charges where there are offenses. I think it simply means that because the number of pursuits was lower, there were no related offenses committed during the incident. So as you asked that question, or as I'm answering this question, that occurs to me, this is my report. There was a period of time about a year ago where I did submit this report to the board, but I am curious to know whether we're able to track the offenses under investigation which might have led to that pursuit in the first place. To get back to, I think what the gist of your question though is, sir, is we do have other means to affect to lay charges and to identify drivers. So as is often the case, we have alternatives to pursuits so that one doesn't start at all. We can disable vehicles through tire deflation devices. We can track vehicle locations through other equipment. We can use other investigative tools, follow-up investigation. Often we're able to trace back. If we find a vehicle abandoned, for example, which often happens when somebody flees the police, if they're able to get away, they'll often abandon the vehicle someplace. If we find that vehicle, quite often there's evidence left behind. There could be physical evidence that we can use to identify an offender, or there might be evidence that is circumstantial, say a cell phone or identification or other things that might lead us to piece together who the occupants or driver of the vehicle that might have been. Of course, video surveillance. There's surveillance video throughout, as we all know, throughout the city, all over the place these days. That's one means of helping us identify the drivers as well, without having to engage in pursuits.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Deputy Chief Bastine, who is very graciously filling in for any other questions? Seeing none, then I will look for a motion to receive the report, vehicle pursuit report. Moved by Member Stevenson, seconded by Member Goss. Anyone opposed to receiving that report? Seeing none, so that is carried. Okay. Moving on in the agenda, Chair verbal, and then I'll look to Executive Director Hanson for a verbal, and then Chief, look to you for a verbal. I'm going to take a little bit of a bifurcated approach with regards to my chair verbal. The first part, I'll talk about the anti-racism advisory panel, which meets quarterly as part of our board. Just by way of background, this is the first meeting of the new year. Our anti-racism advisory panel is a panel of the London Police Service Board. We meet quarterly, and the mandated scope of the panel is to discuss matters that impact the board from a diversity perspective. The panel is comprised of 2 board members, so Member Goss and I sit on the board, and then a series of community members that meet quarterly to discuss a whole host of issues impacting the board. So we meet quarterly. Our last meeting was on December 17th. As is our typical practice, had a good fulsome discussion on number of things dealing with, the CSPA and legislative requirements, the diversity plan under the legislation. And so I'm reporting back to the board that it was, as always, a productive meeting. And unless anybody has any questions for me with regards to that, that's a report from the ARAP panel there. Seeing none. The second part of my chair's report, I'm going to actually look over to Vice Chair Walker, who attended to bring greetings on behalf of the board at the January 9 swearing-in ceremony. So maybe you can provide the board with an update from the board's perspective there.
Sure. So I did attend the swearing-in ceremony along with Member Lehman and Ryan Goss, Member Goss. And it's so emotional, like to be there and watch their faces as they're being sworn in and the pride of their families. It's really something to see. And they happen frequently. And if you have the opportunity to attend, I really encourage it. Just left me feeling so inspired. And I was really grateful and honored to be there on behalf of the board. And I think that's probably it. It was good. It was great.
Thank you, Vice Chair Walker. Yeah, and I guess I'll add to that. Probably my favorite, not probably, it is my favorite part of being the chair, for all of the mundane stuff, dealing with, policy or issues or kind of minutes and meetings and all that stuff, like to actually have an opportunity to be joined by the board at these events where you get to, yeah, it's a big day for the new officers, but to see the mothers and the fathers and the brothers and the sisters and the spouses and the brother, like, it is,
Yeah,
it's just beautiful,
Yeah.
so, so thank
Very
you.
inspiring.
It is, so, yeah. Chief, when's the next one? It's coming, it's a few months from now,
I don't know.
on the spot. In the future,
Every 3 months.
all right, 3 months, all right, so 3 months from now, we'll give four no's. Sorry for that, chief. Like, with everything the chief wants to do, he's gonna have these memorized. Okay, April 22nd. Yeah, it's fantastic there. So that's really the extent of the chief's, chair's verbal report there. So, executive director, do you have?
No, I just had something to add about.
Yeah, please do.
Just on that too, which has kind of become a new part of these swearing in ceremonies, as well as all the officers who are currently in our ranks and civilians that are being promoted.
Yes.
So I thought that was quite exceptional to see them, see their families, and get to celebrate a career milestone with them as well. I think it also gives the new class that is coming in and that is joining the ranks, it sees what they can strive for excellence in the service. So I know there was another group of, this is the second time, I believe, that it's been done in line with the swearing in. So it's just really, it's a really nice touch, and it's really great to engage with those officers in that setting with their family and their children and their supporters. So I just wanted to add that.
It's
Thank
like you see a bunch of before pictures. It's more, it's like before the wrinkles and loss of hair. And it's like, so, thank you very much, Vice Chair Walker, for that. Looking over to Executive Director Johansson for the ED report.
You. So the last meeting was December 19th. That was right before the holiday. Since then, there's been a lot of administrative work behind the scenes. I did give a presentation on sort of a roadmap for 2025 for the board. In terms of the website, I'm really hoping that it's going to be, a communication and information hub. It's going to have more than just information about meeting and minutes. I'm hoping to have, a page on police oversight, explaining legislation, news and updates section, the blog, and of course, always open to input from the public on what you'd like to see on there and information we can provide to you. I attended a governance summit in Ottawa last week. It was put on by the Canadian Association of Police Governance. And it was a good reminder that we'll never reach peak governance perfection. I think that there's always going to be room to grow and new ideas and things to learn. There were a few really interesting presentations, in terms of budget transparency and how to report to the public. The Inspector General, he gave a really excellent presentation in terms of what his role is in supporting the board in legislative compliance. And he sort of spoke to, sort of the outdated notion of oversight versus operations, and more that it's two sides of the same coin. He gave a really good analogy explaining how, the board, they're the architects, they've got the blueprints, they've got the plans, they have the vision, and then they direct the chief, the builders, they make the foundation, they build the building. So it was a good analogy I found to visualize sort of the difference in the roles between the two. I also, there will also actually be, and maybe I'll let the chief speak to this a bit more, but there's going to be a webinar from the CAPG where a London police officer is presenting on police resignations. So that's happening next week. And that is my update.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Executive Director Johansson with regards to her report? Perfect. We don't need a motion to receive that one. So, Chief, looking for you to give the chief's verbal there.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Just a little bit of a recap from last year as we walk into 2025. Last year was a big year for this organization, for this community. I'll reiterate a couple statistics that I will first of all say thank you to this board, Chair, yourself, Vice Chair Walker, for your support of our organization and our administration, our members, and ultimately to support striving to be a better police service for this community. Some of our statistics that I will share that I've already previously shared, but it's important that we highlight this. that if we look at last year, road safety was a very big concern for our community. It was a priority for this administration, and I can tell you that last year we reduced fatal motor vehicle collisions in our community by 45%. A significant result. One fatal is too much, and that is something that we continually strive to make sure that this community is safe. We're going to strive to reduce the amount of deaths on our roads again this year, but it's a success in terms of we are doing what we intend to do for this community, is to try and make the roads safer for everyone. So that's something that I want to highlight for the board and the community. And shootings had been at a all-time high for the last couple of years. And if we look at last year, the shootings have been reduced by 48%. These are big accomplishments. And again, it's our commitment to ensuring that this community is safer every day, every year. Those are two pieces I wanted to share. And then the other piece is our call response times. Our call response times have been a priority for us. For the last 4 years, the call response times in Code 1s, Code 2s, and Code 3s have been increasing year over year significantly. And for the first time in 4 years, when you look at what we've accomplished last year as an organization, Code 1 response times reduced, Code 2 response times reduced, and the largest reduction in call response times is Code 3 response times, over 30% increase or decrease in the amount of time it takes for a police officer to respond to a call for service. We have a lot of work to do. We still are striving to do better, but this is the first time in 4 years that our response times have decreased in all 3 categories. So I share that with the board, and I'll take this opportunity to thank the administration, my Deputy Chief Betchen, Deputy Chief McSween, and Deputy Chief Guilford, who's not here, and all our incredible command staff under their command. And most importantly, it's the frontline officers, sworn and civilian members in our organization. These are some highlights, some accomplishments from last year that we would not be able to achieve if everyone wasn't working together and in the right state of mind and framework. And my sincere thanks to this board. Bring us over to a couple things, exciting things as we kick off the new year. Our crisis call diversion program, our partnership with Canadian Mental Health Association. We have now embedded mental health and addictions professionals in our call center. So our call center, the statistics from 2023, we receive around 700 calls per day in our communication center. Our comms personnel, extremely busy, phenomenal supervisors, individuals working in our comm center. We've transitioned over to NG911 and we're working through all these new modernization and these changes, but this is a change that we're really happy about in how we're modernizing our service to the community. We are partnering with CMHA to divert calls from our police and our frontline response when appropriate, divert them to the mental health professionals who can support individuals in our community at that point. That is something we're really proud of. That is something that is going to be very good for this organization. That's one thing that we're looking forward to assessing and seeing the metrics and the data on that throughout the year. The second thing I'll share with the board is the provincial dashboard for bail compliance, specifically with respect to individuals who have been charged and released into the community on firearms offenses. This is something we're excited about. We have officially onboarded with the Ontario Provincial Police, who are managing the dashboard. Police services are quickly onboarding As we speak, we are in the beginning stages of onboarding, and we're hoping to be fully integrated in the very near future. And what this will allow us to do is previously, if individuals were on bail from another jurisdiction or charged by another police service, and they were living or they were in our community, the only way we would know about it is if we actually have contact with that individual, where our officers run that individual and learn that they're on outstanding bails or breaching their bails. We know about anybody we charge in our community that are on bail. We already know that. What we don't know is if there's anybody from the OPP, St. Thomas, Windsor, Toronto, anybody who is living or supposed to be residing in London, we wouldn't know that. Once we're fully integrated with this dashboard, we will then have real-time information and access to anybody in our community that is on judicial interim release for firearms offenses. So this is something that we welcome. This is something that we're really happy about, and that is going to be rolled out in the very near future. I'm expecting it to be in this first quarter. And the other big thing that I want to bring to the board's awareness is I'm very excited about this one, our body-worn cameras. So this was a big project to get to where we are now. And again, we would not be here if it wasn't for the board's support of modernizing our organization. But a lot of heavy lifting has been coming from Deputy Chief McSween's side. Her area of command, Inspector Brent Lipsky, Superintendent Krigsman, Superintendent Blair Harvey, everybody on this rollout of the body-worn cameras rollout. So Monday, there will be a media release coming out. I'm going to share with the board this video that we're going to make available for everybody in the community to understand what the rollout looks like. So if I can direct your attention to the screen. So we're excited about this coming out. Again, part of our culture transformation, changing the organization, modernizing the way we do policing, and a snapshot of some things that is on the horizon of this year. Big year last year. We have an even bigger year this year with big changes, lots of work to be done. But with the body-worn camera, again, it is about accountability, transparency, and helping us achieve our goal of community trust. And one other thing that we will be rolling out this year as well is more information to the community, statistics, reporting information about crime to the community. We're looking at better ways to provide that information more in a real-time ability. Subject to any questions, Chair. Oh, I will say, just before I forget, Chiefs Gala, January 29th. I can't thank Member Goss, Member Branscombe, and yourself for all the incredible support, guidance, and work that you've been putting and helping our staff. And there's so many people from our side of the house that have been working around the clock to get this, to make this a success. And I will say that we are well over 1,000 seats sold. It is going to be quite packed, and I am positive by the end of that evening, our members will be very proud to be a London Police Service member, both civilian and sworn. The community will have a much better understanding of the incredible work that our members do. We are recognizing important and incredible members of the London Police Service for some really courageous, heroic, and selfless actions that they should be recognized for. And at the same time, we're going to raise money. All proceeds are going to go to YOU and CMHA. So really excited for it. It's going to be the first one, and I hope I hope we jam-packed it and the fire chief closes this down because we're. So, subject to any questions, Chair, it's the update.
Don't have that last part in the minutes. Thank you, Chief, for that verbal report. Questions from the board? I see Vice Chair Walker.
Well, it's been quite an 18 months. Amazing what has been accomplished over 18 months. Really, truly amazing. You have an amazing team, your deputies, your officers, some who come every meeting to say hello to us, civilians, all of you. It's just incredible. You know, when you put your mind to creating a safe London, it's just what you've accomplished is second to none. I just am always overwhelmed by the success you are all having, and I just offer you my most sincere thanks, all of you. This is quite an endeavor, and creating a safe London has been just top of mind for many of us. I personally did not think it would ever happen, and boy, am I pleased that it has. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Walker. Executive Director Johansson.
So I'm just going to piggyback on that. One of the things that came up at the government summit was adequate and effective policing, and that's sort of a key legislative responsibility of force to ensure policing that's responsive to community needs. And one of the key indicators of that is response times. So I think that really says a lot to your commitment to public safety and the board's commitment to public safety. The response times are going down, and so thank you for that also.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chief with regards to the verbal report? Seeing none. I don't think we need a motion to receive the verbal report, right? No. Okay. Thank you, Chief, as always, for that. Moving on to the last agenda item of the day, we have chair and vice chair elections. So just a little legislative background here. So previously the PSA, Police Services Act, and now the CSPA requires that at the first regular board meeting of every calendar year that the board shall elect a chair for the police board for the year, and as well as the vice chair is in our policy as well. And so that's what we do every single January. We have that election there. So with that, I will look around the table and ask for positions, any nominations for the position of chair. Who wants it? Yeah, I see Nancy, Member Branscombe, sorry.
I don't want it. I want to nominate you. I want to nominate you, Ally, again for another term.
Thank you, Member Branscombe. Thank you, Vice Chair Walker. I appreciate that. So my name's on the floor there. I'll graciously and honorably accept that nomination. Thank you. Anybody else would like to nominate for the position of chair?
Dale?
I'll check the bylaws on that one. You want it, then I'll ask you the questions. So,
Well, he's doing a good job.
thanks, appreciate that. Seeing none, we'll, I guess, look for a motion to nominate, approve me as chair for the 2025 year there. So that's moved by member Branscombe, seconded by Vice Chair Walker. All in favor? Thank you. I have some comments, but I'll say it after the Vice Chair election. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Moving on to Vice Chair election. Looking for nominations for the position of Vice Chair. Is there anyone who would like to nominate for Vice Chair? Member Lehman.
I'll move Member Goss.
Member Goss. Seconded. Any seconders for that? Seconded by Member Morgan. Member Goss, do you accept the nomination?
It would be an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals who would like to put their name forward or have been nominated for the position of Vice Chair? Being none, I will now look for a motion to elect Vice or Member Goss to the position of Vice Chair of the London Police Service Board. All in favor? Okay. Congratulations. Well, you're not Vice Chair until tomorrow morning, right? So Member Goss. So on that, if you would indulge me just for a couple of minutes, one of the things about the chair position is that you'll note that chairs don't move motions. We don't second motions. We don't ask questions. Usually we're kind of air traffic control for the meeting. We facilitate discussion, recognize people. Whenever you see people say, "Oh, through the chair," you'll notice that almost never. I think there's one time in my couple of years that I stepped down from the chair to weigh in on something. But I do want to just take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just to say a few things. I have had the honor and privilege of being chair of this board for a couple of years now. It has been, to Vice Chair Walker's point, the honor and privilege, truly of a lifetime for me. I think back to the first day I came into this room when I didn't really have a fulsome appreciation for what the role, the function, the scope of the board was. What's a London Police Service Board? I know I had a sense of what the service did. We know what the chiefs and deputies and day-to-day law enforcement, but I didn't really have a fulsome appreciation for what the board did. And then to work with such incredible people, the character, quality, and caliber of people who have these bold ideas to say, you know what, I think we can really make a meaningful impact and transformative change for this organization. And some of the ideas that were just exchanged early on about, yeah, well, let's look at where we are, where we were, and maybe most importantly, where we want to go. And then what's the path for that? What's the plan for that? If I were just to take inventory of the stuff just in the last 2 years, and I know sometimes I can speak for my colleagues here, 2 years feels like a lifetime. And in another sense, it feels like it was like that. We hired Chief Trump. We brought Chief Trump from York. That was a big move for the organization, for the service, for the board, for the City of London. It was the first time in a long time, like decades, I think a couple of decades since the 90s, that we had brought in a chief from an external service. And that wasn't that, I mean, we look back at it now and go, oh yeah, well, but at the time, it was a big thing. What is it, 18 months, 19 months? I don't know exactly how long it's been, but 18 months. That date you knew. The amount of the time, the effort, the resources, the dedication, the passion, the commitment, the chiefs out and about at different community events. I can see him everywhere, and it doesn't matter whether I message him at 11 a.m. or 11 p.m. He responds immediately, right? He's available and he's accessible to not just me and not just Vice Chair Walker, not just the board, but the entire service. I think there's more access to this chief, then you would go back years and years and years. And I just want to say that was the first thing in over the last 2 years that we did to bring transformative change to this organization was to hire Chief Trung. And I just want to say thank you, Chief, for everything that you do and you continue to do. That's just the beginning, because then what we do is in that same period, we hire Deputy Chief Bastine. And Deputy Chief Bastine, who comes in and, again, an incredible individual who comes in and puts in the time, effort, and resources and buys into the vision of where this organization is going to go. And then we restructure the organization. You say, okay, let's take a look at the executive, and we create a third deputy position. And we hire Deputy Chief McSween, who comes to us from Hamilton. And if you look at the composition of our executive 18, 24, 36 months ago to now, it's incredible the trajectory of the organization, the vision for where we are, where we're going, and how the board has really been privileged to work alongside you, Chief, and your not just your deputies, but your superintendents and your inspectors and your frontline officers. It's been really something that I truly value there, and I just want to say thank you for that. So on that front, some of that transformative change, and we brought Chief Trung in with a very bold mandate, a really bold mandate. It was during the interview process, we said we want bold, transformative change of this organization, and we knew what that entailed, and we had a sense of what it was from a broad vision perspective. But from the day-to-day law enforcement, we needed somebody to come in and help guide that process. And Chief Trung, Deputy Chief Bastine, Deputy Chief McSween, I want to say thank you for everything that you've done on that part. So, but it doesn't end there, because we say, okay, Executive Director Johansson, we created the Executive Director position. When our past administrator, Jen Foster, had put in her retirement, we said, okay, well, now this is a chance to look inward and say, hey, where do we want to take the board? Because I'll be honest, if you ask the vast majority of people in London, well, what's a police service board? What's their duties? What's their scope? What's their parameters? I would tell you that 99% of people don't know. They really don't. Like, who's up to speed on legislative requirements of the board? Like, we're a policy board, we're an oversight board, we're a governance board, but the average person doesn't know. And so we bring in Executive Director Johansson to help guide and steer us from a board perspective in terms of what we want to do. Now, I will stop there, because then we go, all right, we can have all the grandiose ideas in the world. We can say we want to do this, that, and the other thing, but if you don't have the resources and the money and the the support to do that, they're just ideas. So we pass here at the board level the largest ever increase in the history of the police service, a $672 million budget over 4 years. And we pass it unanimously here because it really was in alignment with our vision. But then we look over to our mayor, who championed this at City Council and in the public. We look over to Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Lehman, who championed this at the Horseshoe over at 300 Dufferin. And I think to myself, like, the stars have aligned, right? We have a chief, we have the deputies, we restructured the organization, we brought in an executive director, we have this mayor and these councillors, and public-wide support for this change that, in my respectful opinion, it's my opinion, but I know it's shared by the majority of the board, if not everybody, was long overdue. Was emblematic of what I think was a chronic underfunding of police for a long time. And we get this budget passed, not without an incredible amount of effort to go out there and get it passed. And we've started to see the dividends pay off. I know it's early. I know that there's still a lot of work to be done. But we've seen, just look at the number of new officers we've sworn in. Look at the new technology that we have, as evidenced just most recently by the body cam image. Look at all of the things that are changing. Look at the metrics. Look at the metrics. Our CSI, Crime Severity Index, dropped. It's the largest drop in the entire country, like the nation. It was at 14%? 14% 1 year. Look at fatal shootings. Look at just even stuff that's maybe not as easily measurable. I drive down the street and I see police officers pulling people over. I can't remember the last few years that I've seen officers pull people over. Ride programs. I went through a ride program in December. I can't remember the last time that I went through a ride program. Small things where police, like members of the public mercifully, thankfully, don't have to deal with the police on a day-to-day basis. But when we do, it's usually Highway Traffic Act enforcement. And now we see that stuff. And so whether it's new officers or new technology or organizational, and that's another thing, we're embarking upon an entire review of the organization to look at sustain other areas for efficiency. Where can we be more efficient? Where can we most best utilize our money and our resources through training and new officers and equipment? And all of this stuff is happening, and it's all happening in the last 2 years. And now the nerdy stuff, because I love policy, nobody loves policy, right? But we're also doing a governance oversight review of our entire, like we're creating a new governance manual. We're looking at our policies and our procedures and our entire, and that excites me, and maybe me alone, maybe Stephanie as well, right? But that's something that I really want to do for 2025. And so that's a lot of the good work that we've done in the last 2 years, which then leads into the second thing. Well, what else? We've done a lot of incredible things like advocacy for bail reform. We've done a lot of incredible things like femicide advocacy. We've done things to make this city safer, and that's borne out by the metrics there. And some of the things that are very, very important to me and the board. And I just want to end on this one last thing, and then you probably won't have to hear me talk like this for another year. How do you do that, right? There's a personal and a professional side to what we do here. And for me, this is not a passive board, right? This is a board. I've sat on boards. We've all sat on boards that are passive boards or they're rubber stamp boards, or right. This is not this board. We are passionate and we are articulate and we are engaged and we get into the details. And I know that drives the chief and the deputies and everybody crazy from time to time. I know it. We're self-aware at least. Right? But it comes from a good place. It comes from a desire to do what we think is in the best interest of the service, what is in the best interest of this organization, what is in the best interest of this city, to advance public safety. And I just want to say to the board, thank you. To Vice Chair Walker, thank you for your support. Thank you for everything. To the members of the board, we can't, like, this has been a unicorn board, to borrow a member Layman's term. The fact that we've been in lockstep on almost not everything, but almost everything along the way. None of this really gets accomplished, and we don't give the support to the chief and the deputy chiefs if we're not kind of on the same page there. And so, and I know I'm usually informal, but to Ryan and to Josh and to Megan and to Susan and to Steve and to Steph and to Mel and Ron, our ministry rep, thank you, right, for that. It's such an honor and privilege to work alongside you every day. And my last point is this. It's a personal thing for me. I don't talk about it often, but my father years ago was on this very board. He was the chair of this very board. And for me, there's a personal family type, I don't want to say legacy, but I'm not just, when I try to do this job, I'm not just trying to honor the board. I'm not trying to honor the service. It's also a family thing. I'm trying to honor kind of the good work that was done by my father when he was on this board and when he was the chair of this board. And I just want to say, I hope when you vote for me, when you voted for me for chair, you don't know how much it means to me, not just from a board business perspective, but from a personal perspective. To have your confidence for a third time in a row is something that means so much, not just to me, but I know my dad doesn't know how to get on YouTube, right? But it means a great deal to him and to my family that you would have enough confidence in me to give me another shot at this. So thank you to the board. Thank you to the chief and the deputy chiefs of the service, to everybody for entrusting me. Again, I promised you I would do everything to make you proud and continue the work that we're doing here. So with that, I promised the mayor that he can get out of here soon and on that. So subject to any further questions or comments, that is the board meeting. Our next board meeting is February something. 20th, February 20th. We'll see you then. Thank you very much. Yeah, Member Dawson. Motion to adjourn. Seconded by Member Stevenson. Thank you, friends.
But I. Yeah.
That's today, yeah.
I just want to stop for a couple of minutes. Actually.
Well, yeah.